Hey everyone, welcome to Wednesday's Situation Update. Well, it just gets stranger, much more stranger. CIA, Mossad operation, Israel, secret operations behind a person that's connected to Erica Kirk, Charlie Kirk, connected to Turning Point USA, working with their security detail. Even when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, this person's team, the military operators, took over as security for Turning Point of USA, but they've worked with them, they trained with them, and it's much bigger, and this person is under investigation right now. And very interesting stuff. So I think a lot of you might have heard about this by now. Victor Marx, this was trending. This was trending, and it had a huge following on the live show that appeared a day and a half ago. Let me just give you some of the details. What's happening? It's big. People are trying to figure out what's happening, but I always have to remind you that these military operations is planting and weaving and staggering, staging a way to tell a story of how there's foreign interference inside the United States connected to operations to the CIA, connected to intelligence agencies, connected to the military-industrial complex systems, and how the story is being told. It has to come out from the people. People have to begin to see this narration, really strange oddities of a lot of different stuff, and people have to push for this, for the exposure of it. It can't just come from Trump. It would absolutely create chaos, even with his own cabinet members. It would absolutely create maximum chaos. The same thing, whether you're talking about Epstein, Trump, if he was just to bring everything out, it would cause absolute freaking chaos, because the Epstein connected to the government directly, connected to the military directly, connected to eugenics, connected to operations of how they were even impregnating women throughout the world, throughout the United States, Zorro Ranch, connected to operations that even is connected to South America, operations that's, it's a strange thing, but having to do with Hitler. It had to do with how the Nazis made an agreement with the United States government, and how a lot of people ended up over inside of South America, different parts of the world, different islands around the world, and how they created projects later on, even there. When I'm talking about these projects, we're talking about things connected to whether it's eugenics, things that they were practicing, really weird, creepy stuff. I'm saying, like, they're messing with the DNA of certain individuals in the world that they believe is whether they're the Antichrist, the perfect bloodline, something like this, really dark. And they're trying to create this powerful world infrastructure to see how it would work. Even to say, Hitler, we want to use the DNA. We want to use part of his blood to create a new generation, to see if they can also create the same mass following. There's a bunch of these crazy freaking projects that's connected over to Hitler, stuff that hasn't stopped, connected to the CIA. So there's so much stuff behind Epstein that Trump can't just bring out everything all at once, because it's going to create freaking chaos. And this is connected to MK Ultra operations, connected to a small reason why JFK was assassinated, Robert Kennedy knew a lot of stuff that was really happening behind the scenes. So this is a huge different podcast when we talk about all of these massive different conspiracy stuff that is absolutely connected to things that humans can't fathom. Really creepy stuff. So I'm getting off subject here. I want to get back to this, to the story of what's really, really happening, having to do with why the American people around the world have to expose the corruption inside of their government. And then they have to push this over to their leaders inside of different territories, whether you have a system like the United States senators, something like the Senate, Congress, people inside of your province or part of your states, to where you have to petition or push, for the exposure of the corruption to come out, because that all goes into records that come in different forms. We always talk about this. It actually goes into world court records that people don't really understand that. It goes into military records. It goes into the archives of different countries. The United States is archiving a lot of stuff, not only for the United States archives too, but the intelligence that they receive worldwide that also goes into the United States classified archives section. So stuff like this Epstein stuff, Trump just can't expose it because it has to come in stages. Everything, because it's connected to a security breach, a national security emergency. It's just massive. That's all I can say. It's like a huge headache trying to explain sometimes all of this, because it's a national security crisis, the Epstein stuff. The virus is a national security crisis. The infiltration of Israel, of powerful foreign agencies inside of the United States government, it's a national security crisis. So that's what these projects behind the scenes having to do with Tucker Carlson, having to do with Candace Owens, having to do with a lot of people, Alex Jones, bringing this up to the American people. So that's why Candace Owens keeps trending. And there's a huge division as you've seen all of this. And I told you this event was going to happen. You're watching all of these different events really unfold. So getting back to this subject, American people, Candace Owens, exposing this really strange, really creepy things that's connected to Turning Point USA, even hiring Victor Marks, the a lot of ex-special military operators working for him. And then it's just, there's so much stuff in my head to talk about this, so you got to kind of be here with me, follow along on this strange stuff that's being exposed, okay? Turning Point USA, Victor Marks. Victor Marks' wife is really close friends with Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk's wife, operations that they've prayed for Turning Point USA. They've talked there many times, then working together. There's a financial community behind them also that's kind of invested in both of the companies of what Victor Marks is doing globally. He's saying that he's a pastor and he has his own operation behind, saying that, that he's a follower of Christ, and all of these things connected to being like Christians, things pertaining to the Bible, things pertaining to being a pastor, creating his own organization globally, and trying to help the world. That's what he's saying. But remind me, you have to follow me. It's strange. It's unbelievable. The stuff that's just coming out. Okay, let's just get to the information of what the interview was mainly about. Is saying that this person, Victor Marx, I remind you, he's running for the governor of Colorado. Now, he admits himself that he's bipolar, that he has psychopathic tendencies. Some people say that he was in the hospital at a certain time for treatment, all of these things, that having to do with being a psychopath. He's saying this directly himself, that he has this. Now, when he's a young kid, he kills a cat that he's forced to kill, and they put the cat's head on top of him, and he remembers everything at the age of 3 years old. Now, after that, by the time he's 7 years old, he's forced to kill a man with a gun, so he kills a person by the time he's this age. Then he goes into the military to serve for 3 years. And the history of his family is so toxic. There's so much killings in the family. His own family running drugs from Jamaica. Even his grandfather murdering his grandma. It's so crazy to talk about. There's so much stuff, and I'll share the video. So you're getting a lot of information there, but it's much more bigger that I can't share all the video. Look at the video yourself. But just to give you insight also, he says, later on, he says that he works with the CIA. He works with people from different operations around the world, working with operations from Israel, and these special operations, different contracts, they're saving women and children from around the world. And Candace Owens pushes him before and asks him, is it true that you saved 45,000 people? This is reported by different people. And she says, I heard you say this, but we can't find the video. But he denies it. He says, no, those are false figures. We've never done that. We've never said that. He goes, that's false. But then they end up finding it. They end up showing it, that it's on one of his web pages, that they have saved over 40,000 to 45,000 women and children around the world through special operations. And some of these operations he talks about says that there was a lady, that she had her kids inside of some countries, and they had to go in there and with guns, military operations, save the family, bring them out. And this is something that's normal, that he's been doing all of this stuff. So he portrays himself, as this superhero crime fighter. But you have to see his life story. It's really scary, really creepy, really dark, really mind-blowing. Then this connects to Turning Point USA. His wife is a mentor over to Erica Kirk. He was with Charlie Kirk very often, training some of the security, like I said, and then even after the assassination, taking over the project for a while of the security, and then ensuring Erica Kirk that they can protect her, because he has all these special operators, ex-special forces, people from the military working with him, the project operations that he's running, whether it's with the CIA, whether it's Mossad, whether it's his corporation that he's running, or else things that's kind of illegal, having foreign agents from around the world working with his operations inside of the United States, having these illegal military contracts, not to say military contracts, but these illegal operations, to where he's almost like a contractor, because he is trying to run contracts for the weapons trade around the world. He has moved weapons throughout the world, and that's what he's being investigated for behind the scenes. But he's denying that. Candace Owens, we hear you're being investigated for this. And then a past guest that came on also said that, that Victor Marx wanted 50,000 guns for the IDF. And then Victor Marx also admitting that, that he's in Israel, going over to Gaza, running operations. So this guy isn't just a small pastor, which you eventually find out he's not a registered pastor. He's not even a real pastor. He took all of those claims down once Candace Owens started exposing a lot of stuff. And what brought a lot of attention to this person was when Charlie Kirk was shot, he was one of the first people directly inside of the Turning Point USA atmosphere to say that Charlie Kirk is dead. And this hadn't been reported yet anywhere. And everybody was in shock. How did he know? He put this out before Erica Kirk put this out. And like I said, he was the first person out of the whole atmosphere to put this out, that Charlie Kirk. And he tries to make an excuse. He's just saying like, well, I felt it. It was a feeling that I felt because I've held a lot of dead people in my life. And I just want to put that out. So he says it came from a feeling. So that's how a lot of attention came to this person. And all of this now is moving forward with all of these maximum creepy stories. And it's all alluding slowly that there's trafficking behind these operations, that the operations that he's working with throughout the whole wide world, with different private military organizations, different military contract operations, or else directly with the CIA, Mossad, that there's some kind of creepy human trafficking operations that's happening behind the scenes, because this guy's also running operations over in Haiti, and this guy was wanting to kill one of the leaders over in Haiti. That's they call him Barbecue. I think his name's Jimmy Barbecue, but he wanted to kill Jimmy Barbecue. And he wanted to run weapons from the United States for those operations. Very expensive guns. So it's just really strange, this whole world that keeps on kind of being exposed. People that thought that Victor Marx in the public sector, that he's this really nice guy that's helping in the world. But it becomes much deeper when you see that his family was involved in the drug trade. All the killings in his family, even connected over, to his own wife's family. It's just very, very strange. And I just want to tell you why that interview is kind of trending. Very, very interesting. And then Candace Owens, the past 2 weeks, she's saying that the audio that Erica Kirk has out there of Charlie Kirk talking in the audio saying that, that if anything happens to him or something like this, that Erica Kirk should run the Turning Point USA, that audio. And she's saying, why isn't the video being released? Why can't we see it? Because a lot of people are saying the audio is AI. People who were at the event never heard that statement to where Erica said this happened at this event. There's no video of it, So she's saying it's AI. They're scared to release something because everybody will know that's an AI video and they don't want to release the AI video. So there's just so much freaking oddities. Very strange. It still boggles everyone. One of the things that boggles outsiders from an intelligent agencies, directly from intelligence, one of the things that really boggles people is to say, when Charlie Kirk was shot, okay, there's 3,000 people that's there. There's something that's absolutely strange about that, because those 3,000 people, there should be at least 500 different views, cameras from people's private phones, but there are only just a few videos that are released, those are from the bigger cameras, and then just a few from the audience. There's only 3 videos that exist out there from audience members that can kind of see it where Charlie slumps over. The rest are from far distance, but there's nothing more. Where are the thousands of videos, that people were filming from? Where are all the videos that was from the campus? Because there were cameras there. Where are all the different people that were at the events? People that have professional cameras, news agencies were there, even directly from the college, they were filming there. All the videos are absolutely missing. Everything is gone. Then, as you know, that once Charlie Kirk, was shot, they immediately cleaned the whole crime scene. And they even removed the grass, they redid, all of the cement, they recoated it, all the stucco coating. They moved the whole area within days. And just so much stuff, as you know, that everybody was researching Tyler Robinson even weeks before the event came forward. And it's just absolutely strange, because we got to kind of rehash a few things. Was on that weekend before it was going to happen, I told you, I made an emergency broadcast. I think it was on a Sunday. I said, guys, there's an assassination attempt coming. The military, this is hitting all the wires. This is here. We're at this moment. That's why I'm making this podcast, to give you the information. Prepare. This is going to happen. And then within that time frame, it happened really, really, really quickly. So if I can get the intel, that means a lot of people at the higher levels, whether it's the Pentagon, whether it's the Five Eyes, whether it's different intel agencies from around the world, they all knew about this, that it was going to come. And they must have had known the real cables. Those real cables would have indicated it was Charlie Kirk. And those real cables would have got back to him. And he had several hours to get all the information. We're talking inside a 36-hour time frame that Charlie Kirk would have got all the information. And like I said, Charlie Kirk is a heavy hitter. From all the way from being around the General Flynn, being around certain colonels, a lot of people inside of a security team connected over to certain operations, those operations pertaining to where they get intel from. It's just a huge web of information that Charlie Kirk was connected to, the information. I mean, he's absolutely freaking plugged in, guys. More than the innocent Charlie Kirk person that you see talking at Turning Point events or at college campuses. He was absolutely plugged in. He was talking to the President of the United States. He had a lot of different people turning out, from generals to colonels, talking with them at different events, co-sponsoring events with them. It's massive. He would have absolutely known everything, whether it came with direct contact with his own intel, his own personnel. They would have given him the information that his name is trending upon the cables worldwide. They're getting direct intel that, Mossad, that CIA, whatever it is, somebody's going to make a move on him. And this is major. So everybody would have absolutely known about this. And the strange stuff about all of this stuff is that Charlie Kirk didn't know that Erica Kirk, had been an asset for the CIA, making commercials. The family involved directly with the Department of Defense back then. I'm saying back then because it's Department of Defense. We're talking about the Department of War right now. So much different connections to Eric Kirk's father, grandfather, working for the Illuminati, working for the Masons, helped creating the United States dollar pressing machines. Charlie Kirk would have knew so much things and he would have dug upon all this stuff. And you can't tell me that he didn't know, that the intel didn't know. And the intel that I know is much more than the own people that he works with or the certain generals that he was around, and major real assets, people inside of NSA, CIA, all his connections. Somebody would have briefed him. He would have known all about this stuff. You know, especially if you're getting, say, if you're getting like $200 million around the world, you know, to your foundation, to your movement, mega billionaires giving you money to ensure that you're going the right direction. You know, a lot of them are conservatives. They don't have nothing to do with Israel, Mossad, the CIA, but these mega billionaires, these investors, they have real intel. They have the connections, real inside sources, whether it's Pentagon, whether it's different agencies. They would have relayed that over to Kirk at any time, at any point. You know, they would have gave him that message. So whether it was the message that Erica Kirk's corrupt, his mom's, the family is corrupt, the father's corrupt, the great-grandfather was corrupt, you know, to be very wary, because there's a lot of technology that's being developed secretly over in Tucson, Arizona, south of Tucson, Fort Huachuca, you know, connected to the Kirk family, different operations, connected to Raytheon. Charlie Kirk would have known about everything. You know, you're telling me that this person that can remember almost every verse of the Bible, remember almost every American book that was written, he knew so much figures, stats, data on everything. You're telling me that this guy didn't know the intel wires, the cables, and he didn't have the information that was around him? The whole thing is bogus. The whole thing is strange. But the only thing I can tell you that I really know is that this whole story, that the military operations to expose the world cabal, right? They're exposing their operations from China, South America, Venezuela, Iran, and then it's going to head into Canada, the UK. They're exposing all the operations all over the world. This is all happening. The COMMS are now confirmed that there is going to be multipolar states. Multi means more than two forces that control the world. Most likely it's the tripolar state. This is what everybody's talking about. But nobody wants to say tripolar coming out of Russia. Nobody wants to say this out of China, the information coming out. They don't want to get people into a panic. They're just saying it's a multipolar state power that's going to control the world. So these COMMS are confirmed about these powerful super states that's going to evolve. Right now, you just had Trump meet with Xi. Tribunals happening. Major arrests taking place inside of China. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of arrests that took place in China. A lot of destruction underneath different places, especially over in Beijing. These underground bases that they had, kind of like the same thing, Area 51. They dismantled, they destroyed a few things. The stuff that Clayton Morris redacted, people are talking about, because Clayton Morris redacted, you're telling about intelligent agencies that move information through him, people that he's highly connected to, Congress, senators, people watching him from all over the world, redacted Clayton Morris. He's talking about Washington, D.C., the satanic operation, underground bunkers, underground tunnel systems, underground rituals underneath Washington, D.C., and those were being destroyed. He did a huge report on that twice, one last year and one at the beginning of the year, talking about the underground stuff. So talking on that front, talking about the explosions over in Area 51, the same thing's been going on over in Beijing, in this place that people call the Forbidden Temple, the Forbidden Land, the Forbidden Garden. There's a lot of old operations that's being destroyed that the Rothschilds had created there the past 200 years. And then, of course, it goes back to ancient civilizations, old technology. It goes to things that is connected to aliens and the big topic in the conversation in government sectors all around the world. So inside of Beijing, this is where Z runs operations from inside of this certain place. It's called the Forbidden, like I said, the Forbidden Garden. It's right near there. I always forget this. I have to look at my notes, the name of this city, because these Chinese names are really hard for me to mount. Zhongnanhai. I hope I said that right. So Zhongnanhai. This is where Z facilitates operations over in Beijing. Intelligence agencies, military bases underground. Now, here's the kicker off of everything that's kind of really happening, you guys, is Trump meets with Z, goes to Z. Z had arrests us all last year. A coup, a shootout happened with Z, his generals. More people were arrested to show that there was a coup connected to corruption, connected to CCP. So what you can kind of say is, since that time, there's like a continuity of government military operations running China. That means that the regular government that was controlled by the Rothschilds, the deep state, all of these different names, Jesuits that actually run everything connected over to the House of London. These old operations, it has collapsed. Now there's a silent continuity military government operations running inside of China. And that's why all of these different arrests have been escalating. It's intensifying. Then Trump going there to testify, to put it into world records, to put it into government archives. Trump went there to talk about tribunals. And then inside of the Chinese records, inside of their archives, inside of military records for Trump, with the world's most powerful CEOs to say where the stolen money was, how this was all stolen, whether it went to Switzerland, whether it went to the banks of the Vatican, or it went over to the banks over in the UK, Hong Kong transfers, and then talk about the pandemic, how this was all created because it was an act of war for these world military games that happened, back in 2019. I believe that's when it was. And then in this time, they delivered the virus through the soldiers from Wuhan. The virus moved over to these world military games inside of China. Then the soldiers took all of that, that bioweapon virus back to different countries. And that's how it initially spread. It didn't really work out like how the globalists really wanted to work out. There's a lot of things that affected the real virus. There's lots of things connected to the natural atmosphere. And then it's connected to stuff that people still don't really understand, whether it's scientists, government, military. The DNA spirit energy connected to atoms, connected to miracles. This powerful energy that can give you deja vu, this powerful energy that gives people the gift to see the future, or a gift that can help you, to navigate through your life, to see miraculous events, to see miracles, to have the faith that, that there is powers beyond our universe, and then connected to our inner spirit and an energy that is moving. And those energy forces of a collective consciousness, the DNA, human spirit, being able also to create frequencies that can affect these viruses. This is what scientists who are developing a lot of these different crazy super viruses, they can't understand it they're still having problems with it. Why certain things works in the laboratory, but then it doesn't work later on when it's released. So kind of talking on that subject is Trump goes to China and tells them that it's an act of war, what you guys did there. But we're here to testify, to give you the evidence that the virus came from Wuhan, came from the United States. The CCP, globalist operations, brought that virus into Wuhan. Now they're talking also about everything else, creation of the vaccines, creation about all of these different wars, money being funded, to different terrorist operations inside of Iran, then to the stolen elections, and then uranium that was being transferred from China into different countries, South America into South Africa, and then those operations growing even more, South Africa enriching a lot of their uranium, then sending that over to Israel also, saying that these are all acts of war. We have all the proof, but we need to clean this whole slate if we're going to work together and to create these powerful super countries, the tripolar world. So talking on this front, my comms are like confirmed. I'm saying like is because they're just using different words. Today, Putin, Xi come out and say that they have signed agreements, on this multiple polar world power. That means more than two countries is going to control all of the world. So more than two countries, that starts at 3. So that's multipolar worlds because, anyways, that's what the agreement was signed about. This is what's hitting the news. People are trying to figure this out. So it's very interesting that Xi is talking about this. And it's very interesting that Putin is talking about this. It's very interesting that a lot of people inside of mainstream media have been talking about this, the tripolar world of what's going to happen. And you always have to remember, it's not changing your culture. It's not controlling your language. It's not anything that's something pertaining to your religion, what's going to happen. United States taking power from Greenland to Canada down to South America. They're going to create this powerful united front, new financial system. A lot of stuff is going to be created through that, stopping the drug trade, the exposure to corruption, all of this stuff. But Canada will still be Canada, whatever they do there, whatever happens inside of Mexico, their culture, they'll still be the Mexican people, the Hispanic people. Then to Middle America, down to South America, they'll still be who they are. They'll continue to practice their good traditions, their culture. Just the financial system is going to change. The corruption is going to move out. And it's going to be a mega growth throughout the whole world. Say more than double the financial stability of the world. Third world countries, everybody's going to grow. It's going to happen so fast for everybody to have money. So this is what Elon Musk is talking about also in the same time after this meeting. Elon Musk is saying, okay, there's going to be a double growth of money, that's going to really shock people throughout the world. So, well, that's a different video. We'll talk about that. But this is what Musk is also talking about. So, the same thing with Russia uniting with Europe. In time, they're going to create a financial system stability. It's not that the German peoples are going to become Russians. They're going to take your culture and whatever people are going out of conspiracy crazy about. They're going to create encampments. People have to go to prison to learn Russian speaking points or something like this. I heard. I saw a stupid video come out. That I saw that people were saying this is from Intel. I thought, So people are in panic, especially in Europe, especially in Europe. I'll tell you, it's the real panic. when you talk about the tripolar world, no, no. Then the Canadians too, no, no. And so this is what's happening. Comms are confirmed. China, Xi talking about this, bringing this up. Trump does not talk about it. Trump does not want to talk about a multipolar world, state, super states, how Trump is going to control these regions. Putin will control this region. Xi will control this region with Modi, with MBS. Trump does not want to talk about that. So he's giving those talking points, that exposure over to Russia, to China, so they can talk about it, let this grow. Then eventually Trump will come in later and say, yeah, that's a good idea. I think this is a great idea. We can work together as the Americas. We can create stability in the world. This is a great idea. It's just a setup. That's all it really is, to let China, Putin, sign this agreement together to bring out the tripolar states, super states in the world. And I told you that's super important, super important. And I always have to go back to telling you that they have these little lasers you can build a fire with, you can cut metal with, even industrial lasers that can shoot lasers on metal, inscribe it, burn stuff into the metal. That's for the public sector. These things, we're talking about technology that people can abuse, from terrorists to intelligent agencies, and they can create super lasers that can cut a city in half, humans in half, vehicles in half. It's no joke. The reason why they're trying to secure the world and to bring out this technology, because people can't abuse it. Everything has to come out in a certain way, and that's why all of this is happening. It's connected to so many things. The end of wars. It's connected. It's actually connected later on. Much, much later, people understand that Trump, the United States military, is actually really controlling the world in a way that they're running through these operations, through the Golden Dome, the technology, through these new powerful, super advanced living AI system. You have to remember living, and that plasma energy, that the military is saying it's the new telecommunication systems, the Golden Dome. That powerful technology is going to ensure, that there's going to be safety in the world. Bring out a lot of this stuff that people are talking about. AI beds, even floating cities, floating people. Beyond your wildest imagination, it's going to come true. So that's what's happening. Then let's just get to a few things, the news. Yeah, Mark Rubio dressing up like Maduro. When Maduro's in handcuffs with the same suit, Mark Rubio dresses up. And it's just getting comical because it's just, people are trying to play these kind of mind games. Mark Rubio putting this out, trying to send COMMS, and the mainstream media is eating this up. They're like, wow, maybe this is a secret message. Conservatives say this is all a secret message. These are COMMS, these are communications, that it's a secret message to let everybody know what's going to happen. It's a message to Cuba that this is all going to happen. So Mark Rubio dressing up like Maduro, that's an easy one. Everybody knew what that was about. That just means that they're going after Cuba. The head of Cuba is going to be arrested, just like Maduro. They're going to be brought in. And as you know, the last hours, it's finally official. United States going after Castro, one of the brothers who was once the president also of Cuba. They want to get him. So all of this is moving forward. So that's just comical to me. And then Ilham Omar under investigation. J.D. Vance comes out and says that they're going after Ilham Omar. It's really important that J.D. Vance is saying this, okay? Because it's telling you that They're going to expose all the corruption. For the vice president to come out on national TV saying that there's investigations going on this person, those are real COMMS, because that's saying we're going to take down everybody that's connected to the fraud operations throughout the United States. And J.D. Vance running these multiple investigations from national intelligence, even with the CIA, the FBI, throughout all the United States. They're checking almost all the blue states for all the fraud, everything, all the missing money. Behind the scenes, of course, USSF military. It's not only about space, United States Space Force, space outside, but internet space also. And inside that internet space, the technology that they have, they can get all the information. And they're getting all the information, Well, I'm sure they already have it. Let's just say they have it. Now, J.D. Vance creating this special task force to expose all the fraud, corruption, the first arrests, things that's going to happen with Ilhan Omar. She married her own brother. It's just really crazy stuff. So all of this fraud stuff is going to come out. The military already had all the information for years sitting on it. Now they're bringing this out in levels. And this is all going to collude over to a coup, corruption, foreign interference, all the stuff that you can imagine, all of these different things. Then the Daily Wire CEO, Caleb Robinson, is now stepping down, of Ben Shapiro's media empire. That's the IDF, Israeli, Mossad, deep state talking points, the mouthpiece. This is all of their operations that's connected to this. Well, not really the IDF, but Mossad, of course. These operations that's behind Ben Shapiro, behind Daily Wire. This is how they control a lot of operations through Mockingbird operations inside of the United States to divide people, but also capture operations. Anyways, you guys can figure out most of this stuff. We talked about the bigger stories. And so what's interesting about this, the final wrap up, the final thing that I'll kind of wrap up, and then I'm doing the special video for gold members, but the final wrap up on all of this is right. So Trump goes to China. Putin immediately comes. They're talking about these operations of the tripolar world. That's what they're actually talking about, bringing out the technology. Then at the same time, Trump gives you the information that it's 9 stories that go underground, underneath the White House, the ballroom. A lot of us told you that these are military operations. This isn't just a little bunker that people were trying to say it's a little safe space for what he's doing. At first, nobody was talking about it. It's just a ballroom. But we were the first people to tell you, no, the real wires, it's military operations. They're going to create this huge, gigantic, advanced military operations, but technologies, systems that's going to be underneath the White House, directly underneath of this. And then again, what happened? Our comms are confirmed. Now, Trump directly talking about this himself, saying, yes, it's 9 stories. Like in architectural terms, when he's saying 9 stories, there's also secret rooms, bigger parts of that isn't really connected to the 9 stories, because when you say you're building a 9-story building, that doesn't include the phrases of an attic or else a huge, gigantic rooms underneath that 9-story building that you're building, which is the basement. So it's much bigger. What Trump is saying, we have 9 stories. It's much, 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 much bigger than that. It's massive. And the basement section of that, that's where it's connected to all of the new underground line systems that Elon Musk is running those operations with USSF. When you talk about Musk, don't think about Musk. Just think about it's the military operations. That's the way you have to think about X. That's the way you have to think about Elon Musk, those operations. So Trump building this, now Trump saying, okay, there's going to be military operations underground. There's going to be military medical facilities. Then there's a place where they're going to be studying certain things. You know, he's kind of alluding that they're going to be studying technology, scientists. There's going to be a certain area that's connected to that just for one of these certain levels. So this is underneath the White House. But underneath China, where I was talking about, this forbidden garden over in Beijing, the last 9 months, they're building 14 stories underground, new facilities to be running the new operations of the new government that's coming inside of China. Now, being reported elsewhere also that people are finding out, in Moscow, inside in front of the Kremlin, you have a place where the vehicles park at the parking lot. Everything is blocked off, and they're building the same thing underneath there. The same thing that Trump is building, the same thing that Xi is building over at the Forbidden Garden. Putin is also building a new underground military advanced technology complex system. Now, what's that going to give you insight to? Jump rooms. This is where you're able to transit, go to different dimensions, travel throughout the world really quickly. And this is all connected to disclosure. Eventually, what's going to happen in the time of after 2030, 2032, in that area, really around 2032, full disclosure, 2033. In that time, when people come to the United States from different countries, when they come to the White House, then they can go down directly. They don't have to travel to Area 51, Patterson's Air Force Base. You don't have to travel to different parts of Florida. You don't have to go to Redstone. You just go to the White House. You're there to talk about state affairs. Then they can show you directly, what's possible with the whole universe, going to different dimensions. Now we're talking at these high levels of the galactic forces, galactic federations, aliens, spirit, angels, all of this really fascinating stuff having to do with a very technical future, a very powerful future to where anything is possible. And Trump directly creating this underneath the White House. So world leaders, powerful people coming to the White House can actually experience this, see this, and then give the information back to their own people. So this is all connected to so many different things, these things that people are calling jump rooms, teleportation rooms, portals. But this is all connected to something I've been telling you guys all about, the spider web. This spider web goes through the earth, all of these different portals, and then it connects to different heavens. It connects to different places where there's different species, and that's connected over to the Galactic Federation and this really weird stuff that is actually unbelievable that we're all moving towards. I knew that this was all going to happen. It's just talking about it, explain it. Sometimes it makes me laugh because all the stuff that nobody believed in, this stuff that people thought people were crazy about, saying that vaccines are killing people, the virus was fake, it was intentionally created, man-made, and then the pandemic was a hoax, blah, blah, blah. Then the adrenochrome, the Epstein was doing this. The whole thing is going to keep on building forward. The whole stuff that was conspiracy is moving forward, guys. And it's getting really interesting. A lot of these COMMS being confirmed.
You have a better position to see this than anybody, pretty much. What's going to happen in 5 years that you're seeing that maybe a lot of people aren't seeing that's going to blow people's minds, that will be doable in 5 years?
In 5 years, we'll have probably, so 5 years being, say, 2031, I think digital intelligence will exceed the sum of all human intelligence. That there will be, in 5 years, probably, there might be let's say at least 100 million humanoid robots, but maybe 1 billion.
Victor Marks and his wife Eileen were among the small circle of people who were welcomed into Erica's home to comfort her and to take photos of the grieving widow. Eventually, those photos were shared on the internet. Now, I am also informed that he presented her with a bulletproof car, transportation. He alluded to that in the Instagram post, getting her home, providing transportation to keep her and her children safe. So we can ask him about that. And shortly thereafter, Victor Marks announced that he was running for governor of Colorado, a calling that he felt came from God in the wake of Charlie's assassination. But I've already told you his real name is Vaughn Victor Kennedy. That's his birth name, at least. And he has told a lot of stories about his childhood, namely surrounding his stepfather, Glois Dean Kennedy, abuse that he says that he endured at the hands of Glois, which that abuse began when Victor was just 3 years old. I'm going to show you more about what he says about that in a bit. What we do know about his stepfather is that Glois did serve in the Army doing counterintelligence. He then pled guilty to a conspiracy to of running an international drug smuggling ring, marijuana, out of Jamaica. Victor's brother, Mike Kennedy, also pled guilty as a co-conspirator, but he took a plea deal in exchange for testifying against his stepfather. To his biological father, spent time in a mental hospital for homicidal tendencies, something that Victor Marks has expressed that he has experienced as well, or during a period of his life. Victor's grandfather, I told you, killed his grandmother. So his grandfather killed his grandmother in a public murder-suicide. You're going to hear about Victor Marks's life. Some highlights, I would say. Age 3, beheaded a cat. Age 7, Victor Marks killed his first person because his stepdaddy told him to. By the time he was 17, he had lived in 17 homes and attended 14 schools, was involved with drugs, fights, and theft in high school. At 18, Eileen's brother, Kenneth Brining, tried to shoot Victor Marks on Victor's property. Fortunately, Victor survived that, but Eileen's brother would go on to kill his own girlfriend. Not really sure what's going on with this family, but it's a lot. Like I said, he announced his candidacy for governor of Colorado on October 1st. So that's the reason why his background is now being called into question. It's quite mysterious. And
my stepfather, he put one hand on my wrist. He put his finger over my trigger finger. And then he pushed and I pulled. And I shot the guy in his head and it killed him. They diagnosed me with bipolar 2, ultra-rapid cycler, and put me on a lot of meds. There wasn't any help or hope beyond that. I was just spinning, suicidal, homicidal. On the medications, I was suicidal and probably more homicidal. And probably more homicidal.